All right, so let's get started and just sort of explain our process and what we're trying to do. TAG has introduced micro learning. We did a fair amount of study. We were looking at what was happening across the country, and we found that virtual training is not really accomplishing, I think, what people want to accomplish. So what we're trying to do is that we said, hey, let's go into micro learning, 45-minute session, very impactful, to the point, and then we're asking everybody to come on with video. And the reason for video is that we are trying to limit these classes now to 15 people. And the reason for video is that we want these to be interactive. We want to be able to talk to each other. We want to bring you into the conversation and make it a two-way street as we do in our sales training. The limited number of people coming in puts more resources that we have to deploy to, but we feel it's worth the time and energy to do so. Where we're now going to be able, from a technology standpoint, which we weren't able to do on these, is that we will have a class that gets filled, and when that class gets filled, it'll move over to the next class in the same day, then to the next class. So we may have 3 to 4 different classes on Tuesdays, depending upon participation. Right now, it looks like we'll be to 3 for sure, possibly 4. At the end of the session of that day, we'll look at all 4 recordings and we'll determine what's the best recording. And then we'll take that recording and put it into the learning management system and put it onto give you the ability to have access to it. With the access to it, what we're requesting is that if you haven't hit the first couple sessions, we're asking you to please watch the first session so you get caught up with the group. And when you get caught up with the group, because everything is feeding upon each other. So it's important to go through the cycles. We've taken the day and a half and broke it down into 12 sessions. And we're asking, and the reason that we're asking people to do it in smaller sessions is that we want to make sure that we have your attention for 45 minutes. It'll be an hour if you want to stick around for the questions and answers, if there are questions and answers, and get it scheduled for your Tuesdays, make it a permanent thing, and give yourself that ability or capability to understand what we're trying to teach. So prior to this, I want to go through real quick the 12 sessions. And so you have somewhat of an idea of where we're going and what we're doing. As everything in life that's worthwhile, this is a collaboration. It will evolve as we move forward, and we're looking for input from each and every one of you of what you thought of the session, what you got out of the session, what would you like to see different in the session. Was it worth your time? Was it not worth your time? What was the good parts? What were the parts that we need to improve? So please feel free to collaborate and help us make this a successful journey for everybody. The sales training comes down to understanding the sales transition and the position yourself to win the deal, which we're going to be discussing today. Develop and execute your sales plan next Tuesday. Sell all personality types by leveraging DISC. Prospecting above the line, prospecting below the line, objection handling methodology through understanding how to get rid of the objections before they actually come up. And then we're going to go into the TAGS multi-step process, pre-sales phase 1 and 2, TAG sales process 3, and then we're going into TAG sales process 4 and the sales process 5, closing your IT as your deal. And then we incorporate TAG sales process phase 5 if you're selling cloud, surveillance, or whatever product or services that you're selling. Because as you know, our sales process is designed to try to obtain an 85% close ratio. And it's a well thought out process where we are teaching you how to have the customer understand that they're going to like you, respect you, and trust you. And our process gives us the time to control the sale and to give us a proper amount of time to educate the customer and what we're trying to accomplish for them. So whether we're selling telephony, surveillance, IT, Azure, whatever it is, And then the last Tuesday is, questions and answers, a full recap of where we're going and what we want to be able to do. So today we start with understand the sales transaction, position yourself to win the deal. And this comes down to today's journey, all right? And today's journey is that want to understand the sales transaction. We're going to discuss attributes of successful people. And as we get into the reason we go into the attributes of successful people, it's a key component of what it takes to differentiate yourself in the process. And then we're going to talk about recommended reading. In my opinion, as a salesperson, this first session of the mindset of the salesperson and understanding that it's you selling against another salesperson, another human being. And the importance of understanding, it's not your product, it's not your service, it's not your price. It's you against another person, and the customer is going to look at you versus the other person, and we want to give you the tools to allow you to set a bar that allows you to be differentiated, and your competition will not be able to get there. And we're going to talk about the 80-20 rule, and we're going to talk about why that 20 is so critical of allowing yourself to differentiate yourself. So as we go through this, the first thing we start off is, what is a customer, what do they buy first? And they buy you first. And this is the most critical aspect of the transaction, is what we call the you side of the transaction. They buy you first. And, when you walk in and you're interfacing with another human being, it takes about less than 5 minutes to determine whether or not they even want to do business with you. They size you up immediately. They make a decision about you immediately. And it's all a matter of how you handle yourself and what you do and how you do it and why you do what you want to do. The you side of the transaction is the most critical thing that we can work on and understand. People are going to like you, but we also want them to get to respect you, and we want them to trust you. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as we go through the presentation, we'll talk about the you side and how to differentiate yourself. What do they buy second? As you go in there, the individual will buy your company second. In other words, they'll accept you, then they're going to look at your company, how long you've been in business, what are your values, what services that do you provide, what differentiates your company from other companies. And this is why the project overview, when you get into the sales process, is so important, in that we send out a overview of your company and your services. We Federal Express it. That gives you 20 minutes more education time of where your competitors are going to be. And as we get into that sales process, it gets explained. They buy that second. What they buy third and what they buy last is what? They buy product. That's what they buy last. And, as we go through and we look at sales training, most sales companies, or most companies train their salespeople where they hired somebody. They said, okay, hey, I forgot to get your cards, but there's a desk. Go make some appointments. That salesperson flounders for a while. Then the manufacturer comes in, and the manufacturer says, oh, we're going to do sales training. And then the manufacturer demonstrates how the product works. So the salesman sits back and says, oh, that's how we sell it. We go teach people how the product works, right? And it's the last thing that they buy, but it's the first thing that most companies will come in and try to sell first. Got to sell yourself first, got to sell the company second, got to sell the product third. In addition to that, these are the products that we have. Whether you're selling SureWeb, whether you're selling Tiger Paw, Atomic 8-Ball, Pulsar, whatever you're selling, the one thing we teach salespeople, he who brings up the product name last has a higher probability of success in the sales process. Why is that? Well, psychologically, if I walk in and I say, hey, I sell Zeltis, I sell Mitel, I sell ShoreTel, all right, that's my product. You got it all over the place. Subconsciously, the customer shuts down, because they're saying, wait a second, everything this person is telling me, they're telling me because that's what they sell. Therefore, they're trying to sell me on that product. As a salesperson, he who presents product last has a higher probability of success. And the reason for that is just that, is that you talk about what the product does from a business application, you talk about what's in it for them from a service standpoint, and you talk about the things that the technology will do for them, but we don't come in with product. Best thing that ever can happen to you. Customer will say, hey, Dale, what product do you sell? I say, well, we're multi-lined. What I need to understand is what and how your business operates, what you're trying to accomplish, but more importantly, trying to understand why you're trying to accomplish that. As I get a better understanding of your business, I get a better understanding of how you're trying to create competitive advantage and how your business flows, I'm going to pick the right product. I'm not at that point yet. I just need to get better understanding. And as I said, the most important thing is let me know why you want to accomplish this. Because if I know the why, I have a lot of different ways of going and accomplishing that for you. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Customer? Well, you immediately put that customer saying, oh, wait a second, I have a salesperson in here not trying to sell me. He wants to listen to me first, wants to understand what my concerns are, and wants to understand why I want to do something. And then I say to them, is that once we go through this process, as you educate me about your business and I educate you about my product and services, we will pick the proper product that's going to suffice and do what you want it to do in what you're trying to accomplish. And I get affirmation. Does that make sense? Can you see the value in doing it that way? And all of a sudden, I'm in a more of a consultative approach than I'm in a, let me sell you something. I sell Mitel, I sell this, I sell Continuum. We're not there trying to sell. So it differentiates you. And when you look back and you say, okay, well, I need to develop the you side because that's the most important. My company is important and my product, not that the product isn't important, but that's not what we're selling. We're not going in and saying, how many servers, how many PCs, let me put a quote together for you. We're going to learn about their business. And as we learn about their business, we're going to understand to give them a better understanding of what we're doing. People buy price when we don't give them anything else to purchase. This sales process that we develop gives them a whole host of different things of what it's going to do for them. Let's differentiate ourselves. If we understand those principles and we agree with that, we need to find a way to differentiate ourselves. And we're going to talk about the attributes of successful people. This is the number one differentiation. And, this is where when we hire new people, the first thing we look at is, do they have 80% of these attributes? And if they do, all right, we'll hire that person because we know they're going to be successful. Now, this is a point where sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror and it's hard to understand that, geez, am I doing this or not doing this? And we ask the question is that, do I have these attributes and do I not? And that's something that you have to take a look at. So when you look at the attributes of successful people, before we get started, I don't know how many of you realize that when you joined this session today, we were going to give you the secret to life, but we're going to do that for you. And the secret to life, what is that? The secret to life is simple. Life is a series of choices, and you get to make those choices. And when you realize that you make those choices and you can make any choice that you want to make, is it a choice to be successful? Absolutely. Is it a choice not to be successful? Absolutely. Is it a choice to be happy? Absolutely. Is it a choice not to be happy? You get to make those choices. And that's what life's all about, is that there's all kinds of choices that we have, and you can make whatever choice you made. That's a choice that you made. If you don't have something or you're not accomplishing something that you want to accomplish, that's a choice that you made. And when you look at successful people, and I define the successful as somebody who holds themselves accountable to themselves and somebody who is responsible to themselves. We all know what needs to be done, and we take on the accountability for ourselves. It's not that, my boss is an idiot, my product's crummy, the price is too high, I'm in a bad relationship, I have this going on, all the things that affect us in our lives that puts us in a position of counter-reacting any success that we can have. But those are choices that we made. And when you learn and understand that's the choice that you made, all right, you accept that responsibility, you will be successful. And oh, by the way, you'll be a happier person. And we all make those choices. And as we look at choices, we always ask, why do people do things they don't enjoy doing? I've never understood that. If life's choices, why would I make a choice to do something I don't enjoy doing? And my favorite example is this. I'll get into a class and I'll say, how many people enjoy cleaning toilets? And nobody raises their hand. I said, well, how many of you or your spouse are cleaning toilets at your house? And 80% of the audience raises their hand. And I go, why would you do that? And the answer I get, well, somebody has to do it and it needs to be done. It has to be cleaned. I said, okay, well, let's step back and let's go to a different world. And, I always get accused of living in Dale's world. And when I live in Dale's world, I go, yeah, I'm in Dale's world. It's a better world. In Dale's world, I look at things differently. My choice is not to do toilets. If I were to take the time and energy that it takes to do something I don't enjoy doing and take that time and give that to me for understanding my profession better, contributing to my profession, understanding, learning on a daily basis to do a job better, and understand taking time to develop my skills, whatever position I'm in. All right. I'd say to a salesperson, if you spent the time applying these 8 points of attributes of successful people, you're going to find that you're going to end up selling at least one more deal a month. Take what that commission is, and that commission is a lot less money than it would take for someone to come in and clean your house and clean your toilets. So you make money by not cleaning your toilets. But you've got to make that choice to take that time and utilize that time effectively as you move forward. So it's up to you. Your success is a choice that you make. Now, we all hear about the 80-20 rule. And, the 80-20 rule came out from an Italian philosopher, I believe his name was Prato, in the 1700s. And he recognized and saw something that the 80-20 rule applies to everything. 80% of your business is coming from 20% of your salespeople. 80% of your income is coming from 20% of your customers. 80% of the technical problems that are being resolved by 20% of your technical force. 80% of the carpetware in your office, 80% is going to be in 20% of the square footage, the hallways and pathways. It applies to everything in life. It also includes and applies to the human being. Is that there are some people who are 20s and there are some people who are 80s. And 20s have these attributes that we're going to discuss. And it's not that 80s are bad people. It's that they're just clueless. They don't get it. The lights haven't come on. They don't have that ability to look at themselves. They blame everybody else for everything that, going right or wrong or indifferent to them. And they don't take responsibility for themselves, and they don't hold themselves accountable. Not that they're bad people. They just don't know what's going on. So the 80-20 rule is that we say, you know what, how do I become a 20? And at the end of this presentation, we all have to look at ourselves and say, am I a 20 or am I an 80? And what I'm going to tell you is that you're competing against 80s. And if you're a 20, you're going to have a higher probability of more success in the sales process. What's the number one attribute of a successful person? Successful people read. Successful people never stop learning. Successful people have that curiosity of, what does that mean? What does that look like? Why is it this way? And you're constantly learning. And the only way we can learn once we get out of school is to do what? Is to read. And, when we do our hiring, our hiring process at TAG is geared around higher 20s. If you surround yourself with 20s and you associate with 20s and you are a 20, life is so much easier, more productive, and you're a lot happier. When we go through an interview and we ask the number one question, the first question we ask is, hey, what do you enjoy reading? What are you reading right now? And we get, I don't read. I don't have time to read. I say, well, okay, fine. we're going to close off this interview. I don't want to waste your time or mine. And you know what? Because think about it. Why would you hire somebody who's not willing to go learn, or hire somebody who doesn't have the joy of learning? You have to give that information to yourself. You've got to educate yourself. And when you're educated, all right, that's what a 20 is. They're able to converse on numerous subjects. They have a wide swath of information and knowledge of a lot of different subjects and concepts. And guess what? When you walk into that customer, they can determine whether you're educated and if you have knowledge to you. And the more knowledge you have, the more the ability is that you're going to be able to relate to that potential customer or your customer. And guess what? That's where they start liking you and they start trusting you. Reading is our number one attribute. You never, ever stop learning. And when I was growing up, I had a father who said, well, some people die at 20, some 30, some people die at 40. I never quite understood what he was saying to me. But he was saying to me, when you stop learning, you have a mental death. And you know what? We want people that aren't into a mental death. We want them to be productive and we want them to work for us. So reading becomes an integral part of their success and your success. The second attribute that all successful people have the ability to visualize things before they happen. They have the ability to see things before they occur, and they play things in their mind. Anybody who's ever had any success in their life, they saw that success first and foremost in their mind. Everything they do or going to be doing, they role play it, they see it, they feel it, they taste it. Everything that can possibly occurring to them, they've experienced it. So they're able to visualize. But more importantly, when you learn how to visualize forward, you automatically learn how to visualize backwards. You go on a sales call, you don't get the sale, and you sit down and you visualize everything that you did in that process. And you recall body language, you recall comments, you recall reactions, and you see it. And you know what? That's how we learned how to sell. We learned how to sell by not making the sale, visualizing it, holding our responsibility. You didn't make the sale because you jacked it up. You did something wrong. That's why you didn't make the sale. Well, those people who take on that responsibility and accountability learn from what they did and how they did it and what reaction that they were able to obtain from that, the end user. Visualization. Look at successful people in your life, and I'll show you someone that has strong visualization skills to be able to do that. The third attribute is that here, I'm sorry, where does a successful person see their success first? They see it in their mind. All right. The third attribute, the successful people have the ability to listen. As you know, this is sales training, but we say, show me a salesperson that will listen to the customer first and foremost. And that's why we say, hey, we want to understand what you're trying to accomplish, but more importantly, we want to understand why you want to accomplish something. And then you sit back and you listen. The individual will tell you what they're looking for, why they're looking for it, what they're trying to accomplish, why they're trying to accomplish it. And you know what? Once you gather all that information, what are you able to do? You're able to end up with a logical conclusion to a well thought out process of what they're trying to accomplish and why they're trying to accomplish it. People that come in and immediately start selling are people who don't listen, don't take input, don't have a success rate of working with other people, number one. Number two, being able to guide the transition to a sale and a close of a transaction. Listening is the most important thing we do. In our sales training, the first thing we say, you want to learn how to sell? You want to learn how to sell something? Stop selling. You can't sell somebody on something. Listen to what they have, come up with a conclusion, and come up with a process that satisfies what they're trying to do. So listening becomes an integral part of understanding that. The next attribute that we have, gather information before making decisions. The more information you have, the higher probability you're going to give them a solution that works for them. You can't go in and assume you know what they have or don't have. You can't go in and say, oh, I'm here to sell you a managed service is how many computers, how many servers, here's your price, all right? And then say, oh, I lost the deal because of price. No, you lost the deal because you didn't communicate effectively. You didn't listen. You didn't come in with the proper solutions. And oh, by the way, they didn't trust you and they didn't respect you. So you can't, that's why we have a sales process with these touch points. You know, the next attribute of a successful person, successful people are sensitive to how other people process information. We use the DISC very heavily throughout the TAG organization, and we use it in a lot of areas, but in the sales side is that we teach the DISC so that you understand how people process information. In other words, treat people the way they want to be treated. Treat people so that they can come in and process the information, and they're going to process that information differently than other people. You need to learn how to respect how people process. A real high D type personality. You know, you go in there and you get into the minutia of H24 3.2 and you get real technical with them. What happens? They glaze over and they stop listening to you. Here's how Ds make decisions. I'll make the decision. If it's the wrong decision, I'll make another one. And they're comfortable with that. Now you're dealing with a real high C-type personality and you come in as a D and you don't give them enough information. You don't give them an understanding. You don't take the time to educate them. Guess what? They're not going to trust you. They're not going to respect you. So successful people have that candid ability to say, you know what? Not everybody's like I am. People process information differently. I need to respect that, and I need to communicate to them, because all selling is the ability to commute effectively. That's all it is. And if you communicate effectively, you're going to be able to do what? You're going to be able to give that person the knowledge that they need to make a proper decision. It's not rocket science. As we look at these attributes, right, the other attribute that we have here is that they see change as an opportunity. You look at the naysayers, all right? The 80s are the complainers. Oh, they're usually doom and gloom. Nothing's going to go right for them, and they're blaming everything around them other than themselves. And they resist change. Well, let's look at the history of 21 years of TAG. TAG recognized that, hey, our members are in technology. They must be there because of the change that's going to occur. It's one of the safest positions to ever be in. If there's change going to occur, it's going to change in the technology. Look how technology has changed in the last 50 years. It's monumental. Look how much change has occurred in the technology in the last 20 years. TAG was the first one to come out and say, hey guys, you need to go to SIP. Oh, by the way, you have on-prem systems. If you don't put a hosted system in there, someone will, and you'll lose that account. We looked at, hey, you know what? He owns the land, owns the technology. You know, by the way, the telephony is going to be a relatively small portion of that. And you need to get away from break fix, and you need to be able to get an MSP transaction into them. And oh, by the way, we just now introduced you to Azure because we see that's the next change coming along that's monumental. And we said, hey, a year and a half ago, we need to start looking at Azure. And those TAG members who have taken the change and became a leader with that have all been more profitable. All right. They are our most profitable companies, the companies that adapt to change quicker, sooner, and with less fear. The next change that we're going to start hitting with is AI. Artificial intelligence is going to change everybody's world. All right. We start looking at artificial intelligence about 2 years ago, and it was pretty non-effective. It didn't have a lot going for it, but you know what? The changes that are occurring in AI right now are massive, and within the next couple of years, AI is going to be the next major technology change that we all go through. So change creates opportunity. If nothing changes today, nothing's going to change tomorrow. So whatever you have today, if we don't have change, well, you got the same thing tomorrow because nothing changed. All right. So you got to embrace change. You can't be afraid of change. And every successful person that you'll meet, when you say, hey, talk about what's changed in your life, they'll get excited because the changes that has occurred in their life has caused them to be more effective and caused them to be more successful because they gravitated toward the change. You got to make change. What we did yesterday doesn't mean that's what we do tomorrow. Got to constantly look at it. And we're in a real great industry that change has allowed us to keep our businesses and continue to keep moving them forward. We say we need to set goals. Another attribute, every successful human being you'll ever meet has short-term and long-term goals. We teach goal setting. We teach life business plans. We say, where are you going to be in 5 years? What are you going to do this year? How do you obtain your goals? First thing we say about goals, share your goals with as many people as you possibly can. They'll all help you. And that's what TAG does. When we do our budgeting, when we put your numbers together, it's part of the goals that you have. We took at salespeople and say, salespeople, you're in business for yourself. You have to have the same goals that a business has to have. You have to have monetary goals. You have to have thing goals. You have to have your passion goals. You have to be able to understand how you're going to get there, when you're going to get there, and why you're going to get there. And if you do a 5-year business plan, life business plan, and you change it every year, because as you change your age, as you go through different phases, like when you read the book Passages, things change as you get to different age within your lifespan. They just change, but you got to constantly, you can change the goals. Don't have circumstance change your goals. You are in control of setting those goals. And you know what? We teach if you have a goal, all right, you have a direction. Without a goal, you're like a sailboat out in the ocean without a rudder. What do? You go this way, you go that way, you go this way, you wake up in the morning, and that's going to dictate it. But if you have a set of goals and you know how you're going to get there, when the wind blows you off course, what do you get to do? Get to that rudder and go back on course and get over there, and you're focused and you know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and when you're going to get there. Without goals, all right, you're just out there floundering. You know, when you look at people who go on to drugs, all right, you know what a common denominator among people with drugs? One, they don't respect themselves, and two, they don't have a goal that they want to achieve. All right. If you look at everybody that has those kind of challenges, it comes down to what are your goals and what are you trying to accomplish and why are you trying to accomplish that? You got to have goals to do that. And the other thing that you have to have, all right, you know, the seventh attribute of successful people are passionate about something. All right. And those that aren't passionate about something, those are the ones that, they flounder through life. They're not happy. You know, the human being was designed to strive for something. If we're not striving for something, we're not happy. And here's what we learned about goals. As you get closer to your goals, it's not obtaining the goal where happiness occurs. It's the journey to the goal that all your happiness occurs, is that we're striving for something. That's what makes us happy. That's what makes us alive. That's what makes us productive. And the closer you get to those goals, what do? Let's move the goal out further. That's called growing and expanding. And that's why when we do life business plans, everybody underestimates themselves and what they can accomplish because they accomplish everything in 5 years. This is a life business plan. We always sell ourselves short. We don't realize just how powerful we are as a human being to be able to move forward with having a passion, having and setting your goals, and having these attributes of a successful person. You know, as we go through this, we say, okay, passion is critical as a goal. The other attribute of every successful person you'll ever meet is that successful people are givers. They always have a mindset of giving, all right? And successful people give more than they take, and they do it as a principle, not as a tactic. And, you know, I mean, you look at successful people. The more successful somebody is, the easier it is to get access to them. All of us have had mentors, and all of us are mentors to somebody. And people who mentor, all right, they're giving their knowledge, They're giving their time, they're giving their resources, and they're giving their talents to another human being. And you know what? If you can affect one human being at a time, you've accomplished a lot in your life, because every human being that you change to the better is a contribution to mankind. And when you look at people who give, they don't do it to get something in return. They give it out of the ability to make a difference in someone else's life. And as you are mentors, you'll find that you get more out of mentoring than you do being mentored. And it's a combination of it's better to give than to receive. All right. So it goes back to those kind of principles of life. So having that ability to give, having that ability to provide somebody else. So when you look at these 8 attributes of successful people, all right, how many of those attributes do you have? How many? What lights need to be turned on for you to be able to do this? All right. So we look at that and we say, geez, if I have those attributes, when you walk into someone's office or you're negotiating with somebody, you're talking with somebody, you're dealing with somebody, you know what? You've taken the command of your life, and guess what? You take command of the situation and you control your own destiny. As I said, the number one attribute of a successful person is reading. All right. And this is the most important thing that you can give to yourself, guys and gals, is read. The most impactful book you'll ever read in your life. It's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maltz. I was very, very fortunate. I read this book when I was 18 years old. And at that time in my life, you know, was I going to go to jail the rest of my life, or was I going to have some success? And my dad always says, geez, if he doesn't kill himself by the time he's 21, don't worry about him. All right. But I read this book when I was 18. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And then I was fortunate enough, and I don't know why, but I picked it up again and read it when I was 21, and then read this book every day of my life for the last, for almost 25 years. All right. And as I read that book, I started understanding what Psycho-Cybernetics really allows us to do. It allows us to accomplish a number of things. Maltz found 2 human truths in life. One is, you are who you perceive yourself to be. Your perception of yourself is the most important thing that you can give to yourself, of who you perceive yourself to be. The other perception, the other thing that he discovered that's a human truth, is that the ability to visualize in a positive manner is the most important thing you can give to yourself. Because if you have the ability to visualize, and if this is true, what do we get to do? We get to sit back, open up our movie screen, we got to write the script, we get to star in the script, and we can see our life the way we want it to be seen. And he discovered that the mind cannot distinguish between real success and imaginary success. Do you realize how important it is to somebody? You can't distinguish. So how you perceive yourself and how you think about things, and the self-talk that you give to yourself, all in a positive manner, all in a visualization. Do you visualize yourself as a loser? Many people do. How about the guy that as soon as someone starts becoming successful, what do? They self-sabotage. Why do they self-sabotage? Because they don't believe that they deserve the success that they're having. They have a poor self-image and a poor image of themselves. All right. Example we always use, anorexia. All right. We all know what that is, right? I mean, someone who's anorexic, you put them in front of the mirror, what do they see? Skin and bones. We look at them and go, my God, how can they possibly see that? But that's how strong the mind is, and that's how strong a self-image of oneself is that you physically see something that doesn't exist, all right, through your mind. As you go through life and you have that ability to understand the message that Psycho-Cybernetics gives you, it's absolutely critical. Psycho-Cybernetics, all right, let's talk about sports. Every major sporting team in the country, in the world, practices Psycho-Cybernetics. Dennis Waitley, All right. I remember when he was in his late 80s, went to China for the Olympics and taught them psychocybernetics. And what psychocybernetics is that, he did a real famous experiment. Took basketball team A and team B. He says, okay, team A, I want you to go shoot baskets. Team B, I want you to go home, spend 5 minutes a day and visualize taking a basket, what the court looks, the floor, the basket, the noise, feel the ball in your hand, visualize yourself. Every time you shoot, it's a perfect shot and it's a complete switch. I want you to do that 5 to 10 minutes a day. 2 weeks later, he brought both teams back into the gym. He says, teammate, go shoot your baskets. Did their score increase? Yes. The more times you practice something, the better you become at it. That's why it's so critical to practice the right things. But Team B, who never touched the ball for 2 weeks, had a higher score than Team A. That's how strong the mind is. That's how strong psychocybernetics is. Psychocybernetics gives you the ability to understand you and you first, because this goes back to what we started with. The most important thing that is bought first is you. And you need to differentiate yourself. You need to build yourself around those attributes of successful people. You need to hold yourself accountable. You need to hold yourself responsible to yourself, nobody else. You get to make the choices. If you don't have something, it's a choice you made. It's a choice to be happy. It's a choice not to be happy. What psychocybernetics tells us is that if you are not happy, because you don't want to be. If you're not successful, it's because you don't want to be. If you can't give to yourself, you can't give to anybody else. If you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. If you can't give what you need to give to nurture yourself, you can't, if you don't respect yourself, you can't respect anybody else. Everything in life, if you can't do it with yourself first and foremost, it ain't going to happen with anybody else. You have to have it here. You have to give to yourself. And what's the first thing you can give? Give yourself knowledge. That's something no one can ever take away from you. That's yours. That's what psychocybernetics does. Every person that I have ever given this book to, and I'm talking thousands of people, because I read this, this book was written in 1965, still out there, still productive. Anything you'll ever read on self-help, anything you'll ever read about success and so forth, you will recognize the attributes of psychocybernetics in it. And what happens is that as you start living this life, as you start understanding it and you start learning the principles of it, you know what? You're going to be a happier person. You're going to be more successful in what you're doing. And I don't care what position you hold or what you do in life. Those principles they work. To this day, I still get people who send me emails saying, hey, Dale, I just want to thank you for introducing me to that book. It's changed my life. It's done things for me that I just never realized. It's been very, very impactful. I have never had anybody read that book that hasn't come back and said, you know what, this book is absolutely impactful. But what we do, because we're human beings, we don't go back to what works for us. And that's why I'm saying is that's why I read this book every year for 30 years. I lived it, I breathed it, I slept it, I understood it. And you know what? I don't know anybody who lives better than I do anywhere. From a psychological, mental standpoint, it works for you. It is impactful. It will be impactful. We write down, we get to write our own scripts. And you know what? Today is the first day of your life. We say, put yourself underneath the knife. He discovered all of these attributes by being a plastic surgeon. Someone would come in with a disfigurement, put them underneath the knife, and they'd heal. They come back, and their whole perspective of life changed. Someone else would come back in, put them underneath the knife, heal. When they came back, they still saw the disfigurement, and it never changed anything for them. Today's the first day of the rest of your life. I continue to say the most important thing you're going to learn in selling is that they buy you first. You got to differentiate yourself. You got to be better than that other person that you're selling against. And they're going to like you, they're going to trust you, and they're going to respect you as you go through the sales process. And what I always say to everybody, I'm telling you, this will make your life better. You'll make more money. You'll be happier. Read the book. How many people read the book? 20% will. The 80-20 rule. Now, that's a choice that we all get to make. It will change your life. If you want your life changed, you want to make more money, you want to be more successful, you want to be happier, all right, this is the first thing that you need to take a look at. So we want to introduce you to the you side of this transaction. You have to start with yourself, and you have to move forward. So thank you so much, guys, everybody.
Thanks, Dale.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, Dale.
Give one of the guys. Bye-bye.